Parents' Rights in Education was conceived in 2009 and became a tax-deductible nonprofit in 2011. In May of 2019, PRIE held its first soapbox event, America's Cultural Crisis. Should we stay or should we go? Author of Get Out Now was the keynote speaker. Mary Hassan's speech is featured on the PRIE website. We decided to have another soapbox, May 2nd of the following year, 2020, featuring Walt Heyer, author of Trans Life Survivors. 7 weeks beforehand, Oregon Governor Kate Brown declared a state of emergency to control the spread of the China virus. During the following year, in response to repeated emergency shutdown restrictions, PRIE rescheduled the event 4 times and changed the event venue 3. It was renamed the Northwest Safe Schools Summit, and more speakers were invited to present. The result was a day-long dive into the complex issues plaguing K-12 public schools. Because of the unrest and militant violent protests in Portland, Oregon, it was decided to move the location from the Portland airport to a venue in the suburbs. The venue owner was adamant PRIE not advertise the exact location until 24 hours in advance, so as to avoid possible negative attention caused by detractors and protesters. We are thrilled to share these videos from the first Northwest Safe Schools Summit in the hopes you will be enlightened and empowered to take action. Please watch them in order, as there is a natural progression you won't want to miss. The focus of this segment of the Northwest Safe Schools Summit is public school reform. Marc Thielman serves residents in Alsea, Oregon, a small community on the Pacific Coast. He has been School District Superintendent and K-12 Principal since 2011. Enrollment increased 85% from 137 to 918 students. Alsea is reputed as a quality small school, embracing innovation, high standards, and individualized student focus. As a school leader, Marc fought aggressively to keep his school open for in-person instruction safely this year. Alsea School District boasts zero COVID cases, and the only Willamette Valley public school open full-time. Lisa Maloney, a PRIE founding member, served on the Scappoose School Board for the past 8 years. In 2006, she started a business, Signature Window Treatments. Married for 39 years, Lisa and her husband Tim have 4 grown children and 1 granddaughter. She will explain why we must win school board elections and how. We wind up this segment with a group of school board candidates and introductions. The Summit MC, Stacey Ann Woolman, introduces school board candidates Joe Demers, Sarah Lynn Dougal, Donna Kreitzberg, Ginger Larkham, Jeanette Shada, and Sherry Smith. I guarantee you will be encouraged and inspired.
All right, can everybody hear me? That's what a nervous superintendent says. It's always something like that. I thought about fly me to the moon, but you already took that, so. Yeah, exactly. I always bring my coffee because, truth be told, I have ADHD. It's an adult thing. Anybody have ADHD? Anybody? Right? Yeah. It was kind of funny because my wife came to me recently and said, honey, I love you, but you need to go see this doctor. And so I go in to see the doctor, and he's asking me all the questions like, do you drink a lot of coffee? And I go, oh, yeah. He goes, how much? I go, usually 2 to 3 pots a day. And I drink it all the time. He goes, do you drink it at night? I go, mm-hmm. He goes, why? Now, that's a great question. I was like, I don't know, you're the doctor. You tell me why. I said, it just does something for me. So you guys okay with me having coffee instead of water? All right. Coffee is proof that God loves us. I don't know if you know that. It's my favorite drink. Yeah, Benjamin Franklin, true. That was beer, actually. But we don't say that because I'm a public school superintendent. So a couple of things real quick. So I don't know if you guys know about Alsea. So we are a small rural school district, and I was kind of recruited to go work at Alsea in 2011. I never applied there. I had applied there 3 years earlier, and then I didn't take the job. Nothing like endearing yourself to a school board and community. 3 years later, I was doing some really good work, and I did some legislative work and was in the newspaper a lot. And, of course, folks in Alsea were looking for the next superintendent. So they called me, and I went up there, and I interviewed, and they hired me the next night. And it was an interesting interview because I said, listen, I just worked hard to pass all these laws, open enrollment, school choice, allowing school districts, public school districts to be innovative and do creative things. In other words, fewer restrictions for public schools. And I said, so I would actually be interested in coming here if you will support me in doing this. And since they were going completely broke, okay, they had not enough kids to support their programs, it was kind of a match made in heaven. So I came into Alsea, and we did open enrollment in 2011. And it was hilarious because there was a lot of community discord and pushback, and anytime there's change. And sure enough, the school board, 3-2, voted, we're going to do what the superintendent says. And in order to get the third vote, I had to go out on a public meeting and do something that most superintendents do not do. It's called leadership. So what I said to the school board was, I said, I understand we've had great conversation, all the data points check out, and I recognize that this is kind of, this means real change in a community that wants to have its own kids and its own identity. And busing in kids from elsewhere may potentially change us. I said, but look at the strengths of our community and look at the legacy of Alsea. We are a castaway school district of do-nothings, know-nothings, rednecks, you name it. I said, but the legacy here is the staff cares, the community cares, and we have really great kids here. And, of course, who's going to argue with me on that, right? Because people were like, well, yeah, we do have great kids. And I said, the strength of our culture will teach the kids coming in how to be good citizens and good human beings. So that was the first piece of leadership. That was actually the setup line. The real line was, and if it doesn't work, I will not feel bad if you ask for my publicly ask for my resignation, and I will give it. That's leadership. Raise your hand if you think your superintendent's going to do that. And the humor of it is that sends signals because the people that hated me, it was a 5-0 vote to go to open enrollment because the 2 board members that didn't like me voted to go to open enrollment. This is how we get rid of him. And the 3 board members that supported me said, hey, this guy's really good. The funny thing is, there's one language and message that talks, and some of the former speakers alluded to this, is in 2011, we had about $300,000 of not real money in the budget, and that's called cash carryover. And all school districts are rated by their ability to pay the bills and fund their programs. Okay, this year, we're estimating to have an ending fund balance carryover of $3 million. Okay. And so when you look at that, people in Alsea, every student in Alsea, they want for nothing. So we don't charge for sports admission. We don't require student fees. We provide all the supplies short of a pair of gym shoes and backpacks. And the most important thing is everything about the school culture is business-oriented. Because we're in the business of attracting kids that aren't doing well somewhere else or attracting parents who are school shopping because of a thing called school choice, we have an obligation to serve those parents and those kids and to see each and every student as an individual. And I think if you looked at the themes earlier in this speech, you didn't see a lot of students as individuals. You see, you saw students as commodities and parents as a threat to that commodity. And here's why. I have never met 2 parents that were the same, ever. But there's things that I have noticed, even really bad parents, bad parents, irresponsible parents. Anybody ever known those? Yeah, some of us might have been raised by them. Even bad parents love their kids. And so when I do my beginning of the year in-service to staff, although this year's was a humdinger because of COVID, I remind everybody, first and foremost, this is the greatest country in the world. We are privileged to be born and live here. Okay? And then, we also tell the kids this too. The other thing is we are also blessed to be in one of the most beautiful states of that greatest nation in the world. And then I told him the part that we dictate and we control as an educational staff is whether or not we're the best school in that awesome state of that awesome country. And that's up to us. And that has to do with decision-making privilege that we get to make. So the humor of it is you will see some themes if you visit, and I think Stacey Ann alluded to that. She came down and visited, and she saw some of the same themes. Students kind of in unison, diverse. We got all walks and types, LGBTQ, different races and creeds, cultures. You wouldn't really know because they're all getting along. And you couldn't stereotype a single one of them because each and every one has a personality and an aspect of the way they conduct themselves at school that brings strengths to the collective table. And the beauty of that is we have dramas, and so-and-so broke up with so-and-so. My daughter goes to school in Alsea this year. I had to bring her with me because she normally went to school somewhere else. But I don't know if you guys noticed, most of the schools are closed. So I got to tell my 14, now 15-year-old, you get to drive with Dad an hour and a half every day from Cottage Grove to Alsea. Yeah, see, I ended up in a divorce, so I had to stay in Cottage Grove and keep the house, try to keep that focused on the kids. And the trade-off is I had to drive to Alsea and back. Now, the fun thing about that is karma is tough because when COVID hit this fall, there were all these kids in Cottage Grove that were really hurting. And Stacey Ann again alluded to one of those. And the thing is, I didn't realize how much. And of course, I love my wife, and she's in the church, and she knows this gal. And so next thing you know, I'm at a picnic. Everybody ever been set up? Any husbands out there ever been set up by their spouses or vice versa? Right? I was set up. I thought we were there to eat hamburgers. And all you have to say is there's a hamburger, and I'm there. I'm like, let's go. So the comedy of it is I was there to meet this young man who was going to drop out of school, who was having a lot of trouble, having some depression, and just not doing well. And, of course, I do my thing, and next thing you know, he's like, I said, you need to come to Alsea. I'll come pick you up every morning and drive you home. And so he did. And his story is quite remarkable. He was interviewed on the radio by Stacey Ann. And here's the thing, is a couple months into the school year, after we managed to stay open, and we managed to stay open because I'm politically connected, and Senator Finley and others through the state of Jefferson hammered the governor when she created those metrics that closed down all schools. Now, I'm not saying I was part of that, but at the same time, I had filed formal complaints against Colt Gill, the deputy instructor of public education. Okay. And then I took a secret trip down to an area of South called Lakeview, where two superintendents who had been run out of the places they'd been, and I'd helped them get out of there and land. They landed down there in the state of Jefferson. So I called in the favors. If you think it's a clean business, it's not a clean business. So here I am in the living room of one of these superintendents. They're both there, and all they were telling me is how mean my email to Colt Gill was. And I looked at my friends and I said, first of all, where's the scotch? Right? Is this being recorded? So, and second of all, not only is it not mean, I'm being nice. And this is why you guys fail. These were my friends. And I told them, is there a phone call tomorrow with Senator and the governor? And of course they were like, how did you know about that? I'm not going to tell you how I knew about it. I have little sources. See how this all works? And I said, okay, here's the parameters, 250 kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. 4 days later, the next week, guess what? Surprise announcement. Governor's going to allow rural exception. Now, guess what school district that happened to affect? Okay. So once we were able to open, I told my administrators, who were in shock in Alsea because they were expecting us not to be open, because then they were like, oh my God, now what do we do? I said, well, we're going to figure out how to do school safely. So I said, we start with theater. First and foremost, we need some masks. But Mark, you don't think masks work? I go, I know they don't work, but let's be real. The political reality is we're going to have things that people can what? See. So if this is the criteria coming down in the recommendations, we're going to take those recommendations, we're going to make them work for us. And then we instituted what was called mask break protocol, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it was funny how the only pictures that ever seemed to get in the newspaper were kids out during mask break not wearing masks. Does that sound like some of the people we've been dealing with? And then when all the fervor would come into my office, I'd go, well, it's called a mask break. So the Department of Education and Governor Brown responded by doing what they always do. They outlawed mask breaks. So we got the new criteria. I'm teaching you something here. You'll see. We get the new criteria and big administrative meeting, and everybody's stressed out, and the staff's stressed out, and they want guidance, and they all come running to Mark, and they say, Mark, what are we going to do without mask breaks? And I said, well, we can't call them mask breaks anymore. Look at the guidance. It says sensory breaks. So I sent out an email, and I CC'd it to Colt Gill, and I said, you will not call these breaks mask breaks anymore. You will follow the rules. Now, notice the sarcasm. Do not hold back on appropriate sarcasm in the work that you do in your advocacy, because don't you think for 1 minute the folks at ODE didn't think I was being sarcastic? Because I was. So then it was, we're going to get him because, so then they gave out new guidance. You can only have 1 or 2 students at a time, and they must be supervised. Great. They're welcome to come down and enforce that. And if they ever asked me, which they did, I said, oh, yeah, everybody's always in the certain numbers, and they're always supervised. Do you guys want to come down? We're not going to come down there. We're not safe. Great. Appreciate it. And this is the way it works. It's tough. But let me show you how serious this is. I wanted the school open because we had done well when we were forced to close in the spring. Alsea was the first school district to convert to a fully online. We did it without a mandate, without being told, because there was no other option. We were online well over a month before the big school districts like Beaverton or Portland Public, and 2 weeks ahead of any mandate to do so. And we took and did automatic biweekly deliveries to all of our households for every family in the entire school district, and we serve 9 communities. So half our kids come from Corvallis, Philomath, Eugene. We're talking hours, 50-mile radius. Even I had my families that I delivered to, and if they needed toilet paper, we had tons of commercial toilet paper. And remember, there's criticism that comes from doing this. Why are you? Why are you? How are you affording this? Well, first of all, nobody's working. We were told we have to pay everybody. So I just asked people, who's comfortable working? And people showed up. And then I logged all of the transportation miles to the school transportation. You guys notice that they approved all that? I wonder why. See, because I said, are you telling me we can't take needed resources to our families? What do you mean the government's going to do it? Listen, this is being recorded. Government is a terrible mechanism of meeting the needs of individual parents, kids, and families. Government sucks. I do not wait in Alsea for the government to come and help us. That's what my colleagues do, and that's why kids are being devastated during this pandemic. That's why CDL is such a terrible mechanism. And I cannot tell you the cost. For example, because the kids ride with me, it's kind of an interesting mojo. I sometimes have things called board meetings, and I'm there till 11 o'clock at night. And then I got done about 11, drive all the way out to Lobster, which is the opposite direction, to pick up my daughter. And this student, the other student that rides with me, his name's Sam. And then my daughter's talking, blah, 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 Dad, how come my boyfriend, why does he want to kiss me? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to die. This is the part where maybe I shouldn't have had her ride with me. You know what I'm saying? I'm not prepared for this, okay? My wife's over there. She's like, I'll handle it, honey. Finally, my daughter goes to sleep, and we come up through this mountain pass, and we come down, and you can see the lights of Monroe and Junction City and Eugene. And I kept thinking, man, I never get tired of this drive. It's really pretty. And, of course, it's almost midnight, and I'm like, man, McDonald's is closed. I'm starving. And all of a sudden, this hand grabs my shoulder, and I just about drove off the road, and it was the young man riding in the car. And this is in October, late October. I shouldn't say that. Early November, and second week in November. And he says, Mark, you're doing really good. And so I corrected him. First of all, it's Mr. Thielman. And I go, Sam, are you okay? And he would come up from slumber. He says, yeah, and he just starts talking. Anybody ever had a teenager do that? Boy, they don't stop, do they? And next thing you know, he goes into grave detail about what was going to happen to him 2 weeks from that picnic and what he had planned for his future, which was very short. And that's all I'll say in terms of details. But he went on and so much that I stood there like, whoa. And I didn't say anything because I didn't know what to say. And he talked, and he talked. And then he talked about what happened when he came to Alsea. And what he thought was going to happen in Alsea was that everyone would judge him because he's not a redneck kind of kid. And he was immediately accepted, and they asked him to play football. And the teachers took interest in him. And he's never been told that he was a good artist. He's never been told that he was a leader. He's never been told that he was a good writer. All of that happened in this little tiny school in Alsea. And the reason it happens is it better happen or you're not working here. We are not here to serve ourselves. And he said, Mark, I can't wait to play football. And I went, oh man, because football was not going to happen. And I had that on very high authority. So I thought, so anyway, I go to the December board meeting and I grabbed my board chairman and I was emotional. And he says, Mark, you okay? And I said, no, I'm not. So I kind of clued him in and I said, listen, I need you to cover me on this one. I said, I am so sorry. And Aaron, my board chair, says, hey, what's wrong? And it's hard to talk about without getting emotional. I said, we're going to have to make football happen. And I'm going to need my board to support me because in order to do that in the short timeline left, it's going to be ugly. And I was tearing up because I wasted time being distracted by COVID. I should have started earlier. My wife knows because I was grieving about it at home. Like, man, I knew better, but I was just terribly stretched. So anyway, I started with that process. I researched all the OHA data. I looked at all the situation with the rising case counts. And then I saw a huge problem. And the problem was hospitalizations were going down, but sporadic COVID cases were going up fourfold. Ironically, the same week ballots went out, which is weird. And so I just called the OHA state epidemiologist. Write that on your notes. I called them. I did my research. I saw some patterns that didn't make sense, and I'm a biology major in college and trained, so I took them on. And I was very effective because I said, you got to explain this to me. And they tried to go through the graph. Oh, that's not the right graph. And they go to the next graph. I go, no, this graph says the same thing. And this is how data works. And so they made an appointment for 10 o'clock the next day in my office to talk to me via that, what's it called, Zoom, right? So I was there. So I had my two principals waiting. One was the football coach. See how this works? The other was my other high school principal. And I told them, I said, you guys are there to keep me from going over the edge. And, of course, this epidemiologist comes out. And by this time, I knew that he would go to OHA and talk to Dr. Seidlinger and all the other bureaucrats. And they would all get together and say, this is what you tell them. And they hit me with a thing called stochastic analysis. Who knows what that is? Okay, this guy back here, yeah. Dude, you and I, we're two in the whole state. Well, it's a statistical analysis that in which that they'll run some fixed points, and then they run different scenarios through those fixed points. Just they kind of use it to predict COVID cases and hospitalizations and things. So I said to the epidemiologist, great, let's talk stochastic analysis. According to the numbers I'm seeing, you haven't done one. And the guy was dead quiet. Dead quiet. Oh, I'm over time. I'm rounding this up because this is the part. So what I told him was, I said, hey, here's the deal. Listen, let's just cut to the chase. I asked ODE to extend safe harbor so that I could stay open in January. That's the part I forgot to tell you. Is in the midst of trying to get football open, they responded by saying, you won't be able to be open, Alsea, because all the rules are changing and everybody has to meet this metric. And so I said, they need to extend safe harbor and all back off. 2 hours later, there was an email from Colt Gill extending safe harbor. Is everybody taking notes? It wasn't from being nice. Now, I did the same thing with OHA and football, and guess what? We just got done with a wonderful football season. Sam was a superstar, absolutely amazing football player. And he has never been late. He's always there when I drive in to pick him up in the morning. What does that tell you? From a kid who hated school, okay, to a kid who's going to graduate from Alsea, and he's going to be on our wall like all kids are over the last 100 years. And I tell you, it's going to be nice to see every day. So the thing is, we make a difference in Alsea because we choose to. And one more thing, there was a gal who said, how do you keep out of this sexual education stuff? You don't do the surveys. I don't do any of them. I don't participate. My secretaries are trained. They don't even tell me anymore. They just, when they come in, they throw them away. And if you don't give them the data, they can't beat you over the head with it. And then my colleagues called me last year, or before COVID was the best. My colleague called me from Eugene and said, they're telling me, the health department people are telling me that you're one of the only superintendents that doesn't do these surveys. And I said, no, I don't. He goes, how do you survive? I go, you have to be okay being called unprofessional? But if you don't give them the data, they can't beat you over the head with it. And why would we give data that asks questions like that divide our parent pool? We have to have the confidence of parents so that our parents believe in our leadership, our work in Alsea. And if we lose that, what kind of school would we be? So I'll leave you with those thoughts. God bless all of you, parents and grandparents, activists, good speech, by the way, okay? And remember, the facts that count least are what the people we're fighting push. Race counts least. Sex counts least. See how this works? You know what counts most? Family wage jobs and parents. It's the cheapest welfare program in human history. I'll leave with that. Thank you.
Hello. You didn't have the song I wanted. I wanted Pat Benatar, Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Because I've been hit with a lot of shots as a conservative school board member who pushes back and doesn't drink the ODE Kool-Aid and the Oregon School Board Association Kool-Aid. So, first of all, before I ever speak anywhere, I have to give a disclaimer and say, because I am a school board elected official, everything I say today is my own opinion, is my views. I do not speak on behalf of the school board that I represent or anyone there. Okay, so the school board is really as grassroots as it gets when it comes to our government. They are the closest people to us in our communities. They live in our communities, they shop at the same stores, we can see them. These are elected officials. We are all sworn and have sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, and in Oregon, the Constitution of Oregon and the policies of our school district. And I can tell you those things don't happen by most school board members. Education now, or I should say formally, in our country was about knowledge, facts, and information, kind of like what you're getting here. What it has become, as we are seeing, is about attitudes, values, and beliefs, and changing those attitudes and values and beliefs and making them to whatever the state thinks they should be. not families. Families shouldn't be determining that because that might not be safe for the kids. But I mentioned ODE, that's Oregon Department of Education, Oregon School Board Association, OSBA, and then there's COSA, which the superintendent is a member of. It's the Administrator Association. I don't know what they are. But anyway, they're all three in. We'll both be investigated after this. Those organizations are all aligned and in bed together with all of the stuff we're seeing here and bringing a very far left agenda. It's why we need people like us in the schools. We need teachers. There's some great teachers here today. We need these conservative teachers. We need the board members, and we need superintendents like Mark. And I can tell you there are very, very few of him. They do not think like he does. So thank you for who you are and standing up for what you believe in. And I think if I had younger kids, I'd probably move that way if I was staying in Oregon. Just saying. Okay, so we've all heard the words, and we hear this in education: equity, inclusion, and diversity. It's all garbage. It doesn't mean that. Equity is not equality. It is not the same. Equity is about outcomes and making it the same, which really is the lowest common denominator. And so as school board members and people running, you've got to recognize the language. It's made to sound good and package good, like health and safety. And I say, if you ever hear that about kids, or you find out what that means, because when it comes to our children, they're keeping them safe from us as parents within the school. School boards is where the pushback needs to be. That is why we need strong school board members. In fact, Jeanette, who you're going to meet just after me, I refer lots of people running for the board to her site because she has a great message of building back basics and pushing back and not being afraid. And she's out on the streets hitting it. I get her emails. I don't live in her district, but she is making it happen. And that's how you have to get elected. You have to be out there working. Those who are running right now, and if you live in Oregon, those elections are happening now. You will be getting your ballot probably by the end of next week. Thank you. See, she knows. That's Jeanette. And we have got to have the conservative people win. They have to win. If you're not running, go help them. Or even go to another district, help Jeanette or help some of the others that you may see here tonight, because we have to have them win. Right now, the strategy is win. We don't have to worry about the details, but it's win. And we need to help these people win. Well, that's how we do it too. We give them money, time, and once these people win, we want to, and parents' rights in education, we will help them not become indoctrinated by the OSBA and the ODE, because they want to do that and make you believe as a board member. I cannot tell you how many times I've been told, oh, we have to vote for this. We have to pass this. I'm like, what? No, we don't. Or if we don't do this, we could lose our funding. Oh my gosh, you're kidding. Or here's the other one. We're not in compliance if we don't teach that sex ed starting now in kindergarten here in Oregon. We could lose our funding. How many schools in Oregon do you think have ever lost their funding? Absolutely zero is correct, but it's a threat as a board member, and I'm sure as a superintendent and teachers, it's always there, somebody saying it. We're out of compliance, we could lose our funding. Oh my gosh, we need school board members and superintendents that realize that's all bull. And also about curriculum, with you said in Texas when you went in to talk to somebody, and this is one of the things that inspired me to run for the board. Same thing with sex education. I went into my daughter's conference and I heard about, sex education, and I wanted to find out about it. And some of us parents, we went together and they said, oh, well, we've never had anybody ask this before. Oh, you can see it later. We'll have a meeting. They set up a meeting, and wouldn't you know, the lady forgot to bring the stuff. But we were managed. Parents are often managed. In a school, you're led to believe you're the only one. You're not the only one. We're not the only ones. So we have to push back. So back to running. If you are running for the school board and you know somebody who's running and you advocate for them, you defend them, and what you never, never, never do is you never apologize to the opposition, okay? I'm a Jesus follower. I'm all about forgiveness and redemption, but not when it comes to running for office and the opposition. You do not apologize ever. Ever. And I mean that. They are trying to frame you or frame the candidate that you like, marginalize them, make them something they're not. 2 years ago in my community, there was 3 people running, and they tried to say, because they all went to church. Well, not all of them, actually. 2 of them did out of 3. Oh, they're from a cult. Ooh, oh, we can't have these cult people. Anyway, and it's happening again in elections, and I'm sure Jeanette's getting framed up for that. But you know what? You have to have a strong spine. You don't take things personal. And even as a defender, if you're not running, you guys are all defenders of those who are. Don't ever take it personal and stick to the message. And I'll tell you one message that doesn't work. I care about the kids. That's why I'm running. I care about the kids. Okay, that's nice, and I know that you probably do, but that's not a winning message. It has to be hard-hitting and pushing back. And a couple of things I just got here today. I'm not usually a fan of a slate of candidates, but I like this one from Newburgh. SOS, Save Our Schools, 3 people running. That is a great message. I also like Donna's today. I just met her today, and she doesn't have any of that. I care about the kids. But it's very good. It's something that everybody can believe in, but it's letting students express their opinions. Now, if I didn't know her and that was my and I lived there, I'd probably go, I like her because I know what she means. I want to share with you about one of the things we're doing in Scappoose, which, by the way, I'm not running again for re-election. I decided after 8 years that I'm going to use my time and talents elsewhere, but I'm not giving up on public education and helping other people run. So I did get someone to run in my spot, and another individual, and we're out pounding the pavement and knocking on doors, and you have got to do that. It's the ground game in a school board. And so we're just leaving this with people. 2 candidates. I got 2 friends running for the board. We need to bring transparency and accountability to our school board. So I wanted to share this with you. Oh, you have a Black Lives Matter? Great, you'll want to know about this. Because I don't care, I'm going to every house. But do you notice something about this right here? This little flap. This is the first thing they're going to pull out. And they're going to go, oh, because they probably don't really know. We have 2 great candidates running for Scappoose School Board, Tanya Francis and Tim Williamson. Our school board has people who have been there so long, they don't listen to parents or students. 4 of them, including Phil Logger, have been there a total of 76 years combined, and have recently engaged in covering up public complaints against themselves. We need Tanya and Tim on. Otherwise, our entire school board will be close friends, family members, the Hogues, and or business associates with no diverse viewpoints and no accountability. Vote Tanya and Tim to bring transparency. Okay, now, if you're a liberal, you don't like this, that all these people are all connected. You want diversity, right? Okay, and if you're a conservative, you know, something about this, it doesn't sit well with people. And I believe that's a winning message because these are huge underdogs, these candidates, to win. And but we're going for the ground game, and we're going to work hard to all the way to the end. And this is what everybody needs to do. and you need to help somebody until those ballots are due on May 18th. So, we've got to play hardball. We don't have to lie and smear about people. We just have to tell the truth. And everything in here, I wrote it, is absolutely true about the people that sit on the current Scappoose School Board members, how they are all interconnected, related, or will be, how they have been there 76 years combined, how they are currently covering up public complaints against them. 3, in fact, 3 public complaints they've covered up about themselves. It's funny, though, because there was a public complaint before that about me being a racist and talking down to people, which they were happy to highlight during a school board meeting for 50 minutes. Anyway, just saying, so we can't take things personal. We have to push back, play hardball, know the language of what you hear up here. You've got to get out and help school board members win the race. Take it to the streets, social media, run to win. And the last thing is you've got to get the ballots. The ballots have got to be turned in. So as the election draws near, all of you need to call your friends and family and make sure they've turned in their ballots. Know who's running in your zone. That's how we win. The candidates themselves, they can't do it alone. They have to have all of us working for them and with them behind the scenes. So get those turned in, call your friends and family, fight hard, fight back, push back, and it happens at the school board level. That is where we take things back. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Northwest Safe Schools Summit. As you can see, attendees were informed, inspired, and motivated to take action. We partnered with several groups, including Quella Winery, Oregonians for Fair Elections, Western Liberty Network, Pacific Justice Institute, Building Education for Students Together, and KSLM Radio. We are happy you decided to learn more about the issues in K-12 public schools today. It just makes sense. Activism can be enjoyable when you are surrounded with like-minded people. And together, we win. We invite you to visit our website, parentsrightsined.org. Take a look around. There are issues pages just for our state chapters because state laws are different. Join us. Make your voice heard. Is always best when you are with others. Submit the online chapter form. You will also be added to our email list. We help with training, information, branding, and contacts. Like us on Facebook. For the most current news, follow us, comment, and of course, share. Join a PRIE Facebook group in your state or local school district. Subscribe to the podcasts, Parents' Rights Now. These are not meant to be entertaining, but provide valuable information, catching you up on the issues quickly. Would you like to help us? Our mission is possible. We've created a great program equipping parents and citizens with the tools they need to be effective in their local school districts. Join the 12 by 12 Club, our small monthly giving program. All donations are important and appreciated, but we know that you have expenses and family obligations, especially if you're a parent. You can do the most by giving a small amount every month. Just $12 a month will go towards our operational expenses and allow PRIE to host another summit. Parents' Rights in Education is a tax-deductible 501c3 organization. Donate online or send a check to the address shown here. We are engaged in a war for the hearts and minds of our children. The left has taken control of the K-12 government school bureaucracy, using local public schools for distribution centers to change the culture. Their ultimate goal is to annihilate the constitutional republic of the United States by dismantling the nuclear family and destroying the Christian church. Your contributions are more necessary now than they have ever been.